Hi, this is Carol Coleman from Tansy Lane. This is the second in our series of using plants in your gardens and backyards as the first line of defense. In the first session, we talked about growing medicinal herbs in your beds and how you can use them in your vegetable garden, your perennial garden, any place that you want to have them. Okay, here is a statement about lawns. Because today we're going to talk about backyard medicine. And I won't spend too long on the topic of lawns because it's a very touchy one. But here's a statement. I've long maintained that the American lawn is one of the greatest mass brainwashings of all time. How we all voluntarily sign up to spend untold hours growing and cutting a non-native monoculture which we lace with poisons to kill plants and insects never ceases to amaze me. And that just sort of sums up my feelings on it as well, because especially with the way things are evolving in the world, we need to take responsibility for our actions and always question what we're doing. Why are we doing it? Is it the right thing for this time? Whether it's going in the store and looking at, let's say, shrimp that looks like it's from the Maritimes and you find out it's from Indonesia and have no idea how that shrimp was harvested or the footprint behind it, to the statement about lawns, because the history of lawns is long and very connected with our cultures. We're now at a time when people are wanting to become and finding it very necessary to become interconnected with nature and with our environment. And we can see the harm that we have been doing. And it's time that we stopped and looked at our part in that and owned our part in it. And what can we do? It's extremely frustrating when you see so much being done and think, well, what can I do? Have a look at this. Sometimes the smallest step in the right direction ends up being the biggest step of your life. Tiptoe if you must, but take the step. I've been talking with people about taking parts of their yards, parts of those lawns, and just converting them into wildflower plants, make them weeds. This is one of my favorite all-time photos of everyone that I have. That used to be, well, it is the side hill going up to where the greenhouse was. And my brother would come and he would just shake his head and he'd say, yeah, it needs mowed. I'm going to go mow that for you. And I'd say, no, you're not. I'd say, why? Why can't I mow it? He'd say, because that's where the medicine is. He'd give me that strange little look of his, because he kind of thought that you needed a tidy hill. The grass had to be mowed to make it tidy. Well, take a look at that photo of all the plants in there. That is one certain moment in time, probably August. You can see that the clover is starting to go. The yarrow is just coming out. The goat's beard is just starting to come out. It's that stuff that looks like dandelion. I had no idea all that was there until I just stopped mowing it. On the other side of the path is an area where there had been goats the year before, and the goats had wandered up and down the hill, and doing their thing and eating the grass, doing a magnificent job on the grass. They also did the front lawn that year better than the lawnmower. And the change the next year in the kind of wildflowers and the plants that came up were amazing. I've said to people that I could, when I've done workshops before or herb walks, that I could do 12 steps outside my house and find 12 medicinal plants. Well, look at this. This one has just appeared in my yard this week, and it is coltsfoot, one of my very favorite wild plants. Everybody says, oh, come those darn dandelions are coming again. They're not dandelions. And look at the difference in the structure of them, how low they seem to be to the ground, and the way the rays are on them. It's interesting because one of its nicknames is son before the father, because the flowers come out before the leaves. And that is very rare in the plant kingdom. Remember how I said it seems to be low to the ground? Look at the long stems on them there. They're very soft and sort of like mucilage type. And they just sort of lay on the ground. And you can harvest them when they're blooming. So in the last session, we talked about making plant profiles. This way, you can have all the information that you need to know what to do with the plant and how to work with them. I brought my binder with me this morning. I probably have 130 of these pages in there. That's why I need to have them, because I can't keep all that in my head. So it's very important that you have the Latin name. You need to start having one of these binders if you don't already have one, because the Latin name can separate you from things that are safe and things that aren't safe. Of course, you're just going to gather this, hopefully in your fields. The thing about it is that they grow in disturbed areas and sand and clay and whatnot, which is usually by the sides of the roads, by your driveway. But you don't want to pick there because the pollution that they're going to be having. So you have to find secret paths. I found 2 already this year, so I need to get out there today. The medicinal parts are the flowers and the stems and the leaves. I need that information because if I'm gathering a whole bunch of things at once and I bring them inside and go, okay, now what part is it that I use? Well, this is my resource. And you can harvest the flowers now and the leaves when they're full. But I think it's going to be mostly the leaves that we use. We talked about the herbal actions that plants have. And it has 10, amazing, this poor little thing that everybody loves to hate and dig out first thing in the spring. And some of them are antitussive, and that's like with your colds, to loosen up. Astringent, expectorant, stimulant, and tonic. And I only put one use down for this, and that is cough syrups, because it is the best for cough syrups. A couple of precautions with it is not to use it for children under 6. And, excuse me, don't use it long term. And the leaves you're not going to use longer than 4 to 6 weeks. Well, if you're having cough drops or cough syrups and you're still need it after 4 to 6 weeks, then maybe you need a second line of defense. But it is one of the most amazing things. I think I'm going to have to make some cough syrup soon from it and try some lozenges. If you would like to have a recipe for that, just send me an email and I will pass it on to you. Hey, here's the one everybody loves to hate the most, right? Dandelion. And people get so excited about, oh, there's just so many dandelions and so on in my lawn. Well, they only last about 2 weeks. I timed it last year, and it isn't that long. Look at that photo. Just look at that pollinating bee on there. Isn't that magnificent? Here they are. I have them out drying after I've picked them. I make dandelion jelly, which must be a labor of love because you have to pick off all those yellow petals and not have the green part in there. So it's a lot of work, but hey, everybody, all of them are a lot of work. There are so many nutritional benefits of the dandelions. And I just put this on here just as an example, although we're concentrating more on the medicinal part. But in the past, people would remove grass to plant dandelions. How about that? So let's take a look at the information on it. You will gather them not too hard to find, and you can take the whole plant. So you can take the leaves. A lot of people eat the young leaves, steam them, stir fry them, whatever. And they can be bitter. And that's one of its actions, which is really good for us. It can be a diuretic. I kind of think that a lot of people my age knew that. I made dandelion wine once after about 7 years and had forgotten in a cupboard. It was very potent, but good. It was really good. So it's very valuable as a liver tonic. In the spring, if you can have dandelions, it's very, very good to use. And it's generally safe. There's so many things that belong to the aster family, and you can have reactions if you're allergic to the aster family. You might have to check that list. And those with blood thinners or diuretics should avoid dandelions. Excuse me. Of course, it's a diuretic. So if you're already taking a diuretic, you wouldn't want to be doubling up, so to speak. I had a post that showed some things about, well, we heard in the last couple of years about dandelions being good for cancer. There's a Western university or somewhere in Ontario is doing research on that and made this big announcement. And that's the kind of thing that you'll see in popular magazines where they give you just the highlights of something and then make the big jump to, it will cure cancer. So everybody goes and gets dandelion capsules or whatever it is at the moment. That research is going on and it is true. And what it is that a certain component in the dandelion root that they are extracting and using, it shows a lot of promise, but we need to be aware or be wary of these blanket comments of this is going to cure cancer, or this is going to cure whatever. Here is amazing, amazing yarrow. You saw it in that field. That may be part of it there. Part of the photo, I see 3 or 4 other plants in there. Yarrow is one of our native plants. Yahoo for native. And you can wildcraft it. You can use both the leaves and the flowers when they're in bloom. And it has 7 herbal actions: antibacterial, antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, analgesic, antiviral, styptic, right? That's how you say that, styptic, which means if you're bleeding, it'll stop the bleeding. It'll be good for on shaving cuts. So you can see that some of these actions keep repeating over and over. As a wound healer, it's just an amazing, and it will stop the blood from bleeding. I remember one day I was out in the garden working and I cut myself, and I had someone who'd volunteered to come work with me. And I didn't want to be bothered going, oh no, it was a nosebleed I was getting. And I didn't want to be bothered going in the house. So I grabbed some yarrow and stuck it up my nose. Not sure what she thought of me, but that's okay. And a couple of weeks ago when I cut myself, I thought, oh, I could use some yarrow right now. And that's a good time. I learned from that. So I will powder some of the flowers and the leaves in my Vitamix, and then I'll put them in tea bags. I'm going to be doing a session sometime this summer on herbal first aid kits, and having that powder in the tea bags in your first aid kit is invaluable. As I stood there thinking, I think I'd like to have some yarrow, like, yeah, am I really going to stop and go get it and do all this now? No. It can also be used in tincture and in teas. Again, it's another one of those ones, if you're allergic to the aster family, don't use it. Most things you should not use during pregnancy or lactating unless you have really done your research on them. We know now how much everything goes to the baby that the mother takes in. So more than we ever did before. So it's extra caution. Plantain. Oh my. Everybody has plantain. It's really interesting because I belong to some of those gardening groups or herbal medicine groups. And there was a bit of confusion on one last week because there were two conversations going on about plantain, because this is a worldwide group that I was on, and one person was thinking of this and another person was thinking about the plantain that looks like bananas. So it was quite a confusing conversation until we got straightened out. But look how great those leaves are. It's native to Europe and everybody has it in their yard. And look at that, 29 herbal actions. Now, I only give you a few because I'm just giving you the ones that I think apply to the kind of product that you will be making. Of course, you'll be doing it this summer and those plantain leaves come out. So you can collect them anytime. And the thing is, they're very easy to clean. A lot of the herbs aren't. But this one, you just take the leaf, run it under the water, dry it on towels, and use it in infused oils to make ointments. I always have plantain oil on hand. So if there's anybody who hasn't heard the plantain story, here it is. My neighbor Ruth and I belong to a book club. And I had bought one of those mandolins, not the one that you play, but the one where you slice vegetables. And I had these beets that had the rings in them, the red and white rings. And I wanted to show off by taking this treat of my rings. Well, pride cometh before the fall. So I never looked at the guard that was supposed to go on it. And I sliced a little end off the top of my finger. Well, you can imagine how it bled. And I'm going around, I'm running it underwater, I'm doing everything I can, I'm holding it up in the air. Finally, I phoned over to Ruth and I said, Ruth, I need you to come help me. I've cut my finger. So Ruth came over. She sat down at the table. I'm standing there with my finger up in the air. And she gets out a first aid book and sits down at the table and starts reading it. And she said, first you find the amputated part. I said, Ruth, it's over there in that thing, and I'm not going to get it. So we tried to consider what to do as the blood kept coming down. She said, well, you must have something outside you can use. Yes. I said, go out the front lawn, get some plantain. She came back with the plantain leaf, washed it off, put it on over the end of my finger where it had been cut off, and we wrapped some bandage around it, and we went off to book club. Well, the place where we were going was a nurse. And she said, Fran said, oh, she said, well, show it to me before you leave. So when it came time to go at the end of book club, we took the leaf off. And if you've ever removed any kind of a bandage off something like that, you know how it sticks. Sorry for the graphic details, but it was clean as a whistle. And she said, wow, that looks really good. Keep on what you're doing. So we came back home, put another plantain leaf over it, and wrapped some gauze around it. And I kept that on overnight. Next day I took it off. Within a week, you could not tell that my finger had ever been cut. That is how well that styptic property worked, as well as the antiseptic and the astringent. So I always have plantain oil on hand, and it's considered very, very safe, except in the kind of things that we're talking about, pregnancy. So that's my plantain story. I think everybody's heard it now, and I never let Ruth forget that she sat there opening up this book and reading instructions while I'm bleeding. Goldenrod. Oh, we have learned so many things about goldenrod. In Canada, there are over 100 species. And the best one, the Solidago canadensis, is native to Canada. And it is considered the most medicinal one. I have read that there are 70 kinds in New Brunswick. I know that I have 6 on my side hill. You just have to watch them and their growing pattern, and some come later than others. It, of course, is a perennial, as we all know. The medicinal parts are the flowers and the leaves, and you can gather them in the summer and then dry them. So a word of caution about the drying is I do it in a dehydrator. Don't wait too long to gather and dry, because you can end up having that puffy goldenrod stuff all over your house. Don't ask me how I know. Herbal actions, there are 5 herbal actions to them. Excuse me, antiseptic, astringent, antimicrobial, and anti-inflammatory. So again, some of the same kinds of actions, mostly the ones that we need. We need antiseptics, we need things for astringent, we need, especially in the summertime, antimicrobial. And the anti-inflammatory is a really interesting one, because people say, oh, I'm allergic to goldenrod. No, you can't be. It doesn't shed pollen. It's too heavy. It's the reason why. And what happens is that often a plant will grow, the remedy for something will grow right next to the plant that's causing the problem. And there you go. What's right next to the goldenrod is your ragweed. No, not ragweed. You'll find everything right next to it. So one way you can help with the allergies to ragweed is to start taking infused honey in the summer. And that means you could start with honey. Honey by itself really helps with allergies. But if you have if you collect honey and make honey, keep it over the winter, early in the summer, if you start taking that goldenrod honey, it will really help with your allergy to ragweed. You can make the tincture from it or take it as a tincture. And also goldenrod, because of, just look at the actions that it has: anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antiseptic. Use it in making salve. And apparently you need to take care with chronic kidney disease. So that's a precaution. Do your homework on that if you're tempted to use it. But the goldenrod, it's everywhere in the fall, right? That side hill that I showed you with all those plants is covered with several varieties of goldenrod after the other ones leave. Apparently that anti-inflammatory part can come in with the allergies, and also because it seems to strengthen the throat and the lungs so that you may be less susceptible to the allergies. Why am I going backwards? Look what's coming up here. It's coming up clover. And here is the red clover that we have in our yards. A long history over the centuries of healing. It's native to Europe, but we're lucky that we have it now, and you can go out and wildcraft it whenever it's coming into blossom. And it actually has 10 herbal actions. Look at the antispasmodic, expectorant, cough stop up, sedative, and anti-cancer. You can use clover is very popular in teas, and particular in teas and tinctures for menstrual problems and menopausal complaints. And the teas are very good for people with skin problems. You can see all the different actions there, 10 different actions. And it talks about anti-cancer. And it's one of the few plants that there's so much documented research on, and this is particularly for breast cancer. But I had a customer come in my shop a number of years ago. I get a lot of people tell me stories that they may not tell everybody. But he said, I had a tumor on my back. And the doctor was very concerned about it. He said, I did a little research, and he said, I just started drinking red clover every day. He said, I drank teas, multiple cups of tea of clover every day. And he said, when I went back to the doctor said, well, what happened? He said, the tumor's not there. And it certainly has a long history of really helping. And it's so common that there really should be much more research on it. But don't use if you have using blood thinners. And if you're going to have surgery and you're taking the teas for whatever, for menstrual pain, or for coughs, just make sure that you stop taking it 2 weeks before surgery. And that's a good recommendation anyway, is that you really research what herbal preparations you should not take before surgery. So we've taken a look at what's in your backyard. I didn't give you a lot because you don't need a lot. With the ones that I gave the samples for in your perennial bed or wherever you're going to put your herb garden, and these backyard ones, you have almost everything that you need. And you can make teas and tinctures, and you can make salves, poultice, the main ways as your first line of defense. As I've been studying and researching this for the last nearly 25 years, I would notice those same actions coming up again. You know, antiseptic, antiviral, and so on. And I thought, wow, there must be something to this, because all the ones in our area seem to have these actions. One day I had a woman come in from, I think she was Utah. And she said, I don't know any of these plants. I said, that's because you don't need them. But I bet you have ones for rattlesnake bites. And I think that explains it so well, because I developed the theory after all those years of studying that there's a plant for every ailment, for every season, in every part of the world. And we haven't even talked about the woods. We live in a province here in New Brunswick, which is largely woods, and the medicine there has barely been touched since the First Nations people found the knowledge and shared it. But we haven't paid much attention, but we need to. So the next 3 sessions will deal with how to make these things. First, next week, we're going to take a look at herbal teas, how to make them and what plants you can use. Then we will look at tinctures, that they are just invaluable, especially for ease of care. I talked about the styptic for the bleeding from my leg, and you know, I didn't have any tea bags handy, and the yarrow wasn't handy either. But a tincture that you're going to be taking on a regular basis is very, very simple. And then the salves. Everybody wants to know how to make salves, and they're very, very simple. And we're going to make a bunch, and you can have them all in an afternoon. So keep in touch. Like the Tansy Lane Herb Farm Facebook page, and you can join the Tansy Club on Facebook for more in-depth information on the herbs. Check out the website as we are revising it and getting ready for online sales. Oh my, as if I wasn't busy enough. You can contact me at any time. I love to talk about plants, especially wild ones. And watch the Facebook page for schedule of upcoming webinars. Next week, next Thursday, will be the one on teas. So make sure that you join in, and make sure that you have checked the one on medicinal gardens, because some of the information in there is sort of basic, and we're extending on it with this one. So thank you for being with us, and get out and look at the weeds.